Hi guys, thank you for joining us today.
Hello everyone,
My name is Carrie.
and I'm Casey.
We're Carrie and Casey Intuitive. Thanks for joining our channel. If you're new here, thank you. Go ahead and subscribe if you like it and like our page and leave us a comment. Today we are talking about something very serious. As you guys know, my name is Carrie. I am a psychic medium, a demonologist, a Reiki master, and an energy healer. And Casey,
I am a empath medium. I'm also a Reiki practitioner and energy healer and demonologist myself.
So today, normally we get to talk about everybody else's experiences, but the whole thing that brings us here today is that both Casey and myself have experienced some serious demonic activity and infestations in our places. This happened before we knew each other, and some of it actually happened when we first met. Today we are talking about a very serious topic, and this has to do with Casey, and this really brings Casey into why he is the way that he is today, which helped me to be the person that I am today too, especially as a demonologist. Today's topic we're covering is Casey, and it is a segment called Demonic Roommate.
Yep, that's what it is. It's like, just call it like it is. It's a demonic roommate. So the beginning of this was back in 2012. It was the earlier part, towards the end of spring, early summerish, and this is where it all kind of started.
During that time, it was a really rough year for you.
Yes, that's true. That was one of my worst years I've ever had, between a toxic marriage ending, losing one of my best friends in the world, and having to drop out of school.
And school was very important to you too. You were finally setting a place of where you were moving forward in your life from this terrible toxic relationship. You were finally making peace with all of the things that you had gone through in the past, and now you're finding yourself in your own home with demonic activity. But it wasn't that clear at first, was it?
No, it started off very benign and very small, and it really started with the initial announcement from the demon. And what I mean by that is the first time that it stood in the doorway going into my bedroom and made its presence known. And how that happened was that it appeared in the door. Though I couldn't see anything, I had this overwhelming feeling that something was standing there, and it was projecting in a very severe way the feeling of hate, fear, and just an overall depression, heavy, yucky feeling.
Right, and at first it sounds like it was an orb that was showing up.
That's correct. Yes. What at first initially manifested itself into was this kind of ball-like orb or mass of energy that had a feeling kind of like an electrical fence, or when your hand falls asleep. And it started out initially out on the couch area here, and it would transfer from the couch onto me and vice versa. And this energy ball, it would move and explore my body. It would also go into the couch and interact with me through the couch. It would form a hand, and I could feel the hand pushing up from inside the couch, and I would put my hand down on it and match its hand, and kind of had this contact through that. But the orb itself would enter inside my body, and I could feel the orb exploring around inside my body, from inside my skull, behind my eyes, to in my chest and in my arms, down to my legs and all that.
How did that make you feel? I'd be freaked out.
You know, I thought I would kind of be freaked out, but I think I was more overtaken by intrigue and curiosity to that this kind of interaction or these events were happening, and I was dealing with it inside my own house.
Yeah, at that time too, you were pretty interested with the supernatural as well. You've always been interested in supernatural, but not necessarily having encounters with anything as of this point. But with your former partner, Kate, who had passed away during 2012, you guys had a strong emotional tie together and a lot of history together. So when she passed, there was a severe depression that happens with this too, of course. It's going to happen with anybody that you care about.
That's correct, yeah. Losing Kate at the age of 32 for her to cancer was traumatizing, to say the least. And the way that it happened so fast, and it really shook me to my core.
Casey's not normally a vulnerable type of a person. He is very compassionate, very empathetic, but your history is you're not an outwardly type of an emotional person. He's not one that when something is going to happen that he'll show those things necessarily. So to be that type of vulnerable of where your emotions are starting up and for a natural reason and then feeling this orb around you, what was that like for you?
Well, in the very beginning, I thought that this orb was in fact Kate, who had come and resided in my apartment and was making herself known. And so when this activity first started going down, I thought it was Kate, and my curiosity overtook me and overtook the thinking part.
Right. So what happened next after when you had that orb that was happening and you were thinking that it's Kate? How did you handle that? What did you do?
Well, it was one of those knock knock, Kate, is that you? Is that really you? And I thought it was, because this orb knew things about Kate and knew things about me that only the two of us would possibly know about. Whether that's being sensitive parts on the body that we used to touch that was special for us, or the way we used to touch each other. I'd rub my hand through her scalp, and
Yeah,
somehow,
this orb is doing this with you now.
and this orb is now doing these types of private, personal things that only the two of us would know. It was doing these now. So that's what led me to my assumption or my thinking that it was Kate.
And at that point, while you were afraid of it, I remember you telling me you were actually comfortable that it was Kate occupying space with you.
That is true. I was very comfortable with it, and I let it go, thinking that it was her, and it just kept on going and going and going. But that would prove to be my invite for the demonic.
So as that invite, I mean, I remember you telling me with this that you were at one point pleading with, if it was Kate, that if she needed to make any peace here, you would let her. If it was something she wanted to dominate space with you, you would let her. Whatever she needed, just to make some peace and move on. That's where the invite and the negotiation happened.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
And there were times you were telling me that she was in bed with you.
Yes, and eventually the activity was not just centralized out here in the living room, but it would follow me into the bedroom as well. And this orb would transfer onto the bed and then onto me and would continue to touch me in ways, and it was very comforting at first. It was
familiar.
Yes, familiar and loving and caring and felt nurturing.
Which helped you to really realize that she was gone and start to make moves towards making peace with the passing of Kate.
Correct, yes. And I think selfishly I liked having her around as kind of that missing piece, you know, if you have, you know, a connection with somebody that
Shared space.
shared space, yeah, and that was so personal and special. And even though this person is gone in the physical realm, having them in a metaphysical realm in this environment.
And literally touching you and
Yeah.
feeling you and being around you, occupying space.
Yeah.
That was comforting.
Yeah, it was very comforting. It helped ease a lot of the pain that I was going through during this year.
Mm-hmm. So what happened after that? You had the orbs and the feeling and it literally walking around on your bed and making itself known. Of course, you're thinking that it's Kate at that time. What happened? What kind of other activity was happening at that time?
Well, this is really where the activity broadens and starts to go off and become much more significant. And what I first noted is that things would be moved and they would be turned in a different direction than what I had left it. Mm-hmm. I'm a guy that likes to have his place very well kept and everything's got a place and everything gets returned there.
And the exact same thing. If he's got pens down, they're all in the same direction. Every single thing is just, and I say that in a very loving way.
Yes.
I love this about you. I do. I really do. Because it keeps my going in space. So when you have movement where, I mean, every single thing has a home, per se, in the space that you're living. Your keys go exactly where your keys go, in the right place. Your pens go where they go. Every single thing has its specific place, down to how it's spaced on a table or whatnot. Everything has its place. So now you're having movement of items.
Of these objects. They would be turned in a different direction or slightly pushed off out of the balance that I had established for the setup on it. I would start finding my towels in the bathroom would be yanked to one side.
You gotta know, he's not that way.
I'm not that way. My towels are dress right dress, as we say in the military. They're nice and even. None of that. They were yanked to one side. And then I started hearing footsteps that would happen in the living room and up and down the hallway. I would start hearing the crunching sound on the carpet of footsteps as it would walk up and down the hallway. That's when things started progressing even further. Eventually, this this ball of energy actually materialized into a human form, a human body all the way through.
That must have been really scary because you're not literally seeing a physical body. You're seeing a mass that feels like a body that's hovering over you and that is now mimicking human behavior.
Yes. And I mean, it would lay down next to me.
And leave an imprint in the bed.
Yes, and that's the thing, is I could feel the impact on the bed and feel it being pushed down, whether it was stepping on the bed or whether it decided to lay down on its side right next to me. I could feel the whole imprint being on the bed as if somebody was actually climbing in physically and was there with me.
And there was, at that point, Casey wasn't seeing anybody. There was nobody to occupy that same space, to have that same physical form make a physical impact. There was no physical human reason why this would happen, and yet it was.
Yes, and that it is. And it moved and mimicked human responses. And what I mean by that, by example, are like it had hands and legs, and chest and head, and it had female genitalia. And later on, it developed male genitalia, but we'll get into that later on. So this entity acted in a very loving, caring, compassionate way, and brought a lot of comfort, which leads to the next point that I had no idea was real or could even possibly happen. And when I say this, I am telling the truth. I am speaking the truth on this. I am not making this up for attention. But I never thought that I would be one to say that I had sex with a ghost, because the feeling of the genitalia on mine, or the impact from a mouth on my parts, the touching, the hands, it all felt as if somebody was physically there performing these acts on me.
And they were physically happening. It wasn't a metaphysical in thought daydream. This is not a type of behavior that would happen to you. You're a very practical, scientific, mathematical, very organized, linear thinking person. This doesn't just happen. But it's happening to you. And the way that must have felt too is a little bit, I mean, at first you got to be comfortable with it, but at what point does that feel like a violation?
Well, it certainly felt good and enjoyable and nice to have that kind of companionship that was going on, even though that I was not interested in dating or had any relationships going on at the point. I had no interest in any of that.
Yeah.
So it felt like it was feeling an emotional void that I didn't have anymore, or didn't feel capable of experiencing again.
You had essentially developed a type of a relationship with this entity at that point.
That is true. Yeah, that is very true. And but then things started taking a turn for the worse, and eventually I would be sitting out on the couch and I would see the occasional black mass shoot from one side of the room to the other, or I could see it down the hallway in my bedroom going from one side to another. And I questioned if that was just, no, that must have been something else. There's no way that could be that, but
it was starting to literally show itself to you now.
Yes.
Not just the feeling part, but it was literally starting to show itself to you in its form.
So now the mask is coming off, and now the demon is now revealing its true nature and its true self. So with these shadows, this is the point where I say, there's no way this is a friend. And my little castle here ended up becoming my torture chamber.
Mm-hmm.
This entity, this demon, it kept me up all night. It would run around on the bed while I was sleeping, and could feel the imprints as it was walking around. It would walk around me, all the way around me,
where you can hear it,
where I can hear the crunching of the sound. But I also have a light, or a fan that I sleep with next to me, and it has a light that it shines off. And as I'm laying there with my eyes closed, I could see and feel this mass block out the light from the fan, but also block out the wind from the fan.
So it was a true mass standing in front of you.
That's true, yeah.
It held weight and mass. It held volume and space.
Yes.
It's not just this made up thing. It's literally occupying space. It has mass.
Yes. And initially everything happened during the nighttime, but then it got to the point where there would be activity even during the daytime. And it made no attempts to hide itself anymore. It was constantly around and was constantly seeking attention and trying to prevent me from getting sleep.
It's a little hard to sleep when you have something jumping on you and pawing on you while you're sleeping, and you're in your room by yourself and you can see the sheets moving and the imprints from it tapping and all the tapping on the walls that you had told me about, and
yes,
the growlings and stuff. It wanted to really make you miserable and feel like you were crazy.
Yes. But I eventually, had a few dates, and I can say that the person that spent the night with me would also witness and feel the bed moving as well, and would ask me about it the next morning. And I would say, no, that's not me, that's my roommate. It's my invisible roommate. But they also validated and felt and experienced the same thing that I was going through. So now I know it's not just me, but other people are starting to experience this in my bed as well.
And that was the thing too, is that because this thing was starting to make you feel like you were losing your mind.
Yeah.
So it was keeping you away from social events, from moving forward in your life, from dating, from a lot of human interaction experiences, keeping you trapped in this apartment where you felt like you had no other place to go. It wasn't that you felt safe, it was like you didn't have anywhere else to go.
That is true.
So and that part from the outside, it's like, well, how could you invite somebody into the same space knowing what you have going on as far as activity? But when you're feeling invalidated at that point by the activity, feeling like it's all in your head or whatnot, it's nice to get the outside validation.
For sure.
So of course you're going to invite somebody over to test the water, see if they can experience what you are. It's not that you're wanting ill things for them, it's just there's a point of where you rationalize that everything is normal, even though you know it's not true.
Yes.
That it kind of needs some outside input on this.
That is correct. Yes. And in addition to walking around my bed, the entity, the demon would also stand directly over me, and then, like it was spread across from me, standing up, and it would just slowly shift its weight and rock side to side like this, making the bed move, just slightly turning and altering from the pressure that it was applying.
So it was standing up and straddling you while, one foot on one side of your body, one foot on the other side of the body, kind of rocking it almost like you're standing up in a boat, but the boat is the mattress, so it's swaying like that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a cat when I originally started going through this, and even the cat started acting weird and would watch and track movement in my apartment that I was not seeing. And the cat would become very afraid and would have a hard time sleeping in my bed at night with me. And when I was talking about feeling the mass from these entities, I could also feel a height variation. So sometimes this entity would seem like it was only like 2 feet tall and would just be like this very tiny individual that would walk around me and block out the fan, the light and the air from the fan. But then on other occasions, it would demonstrate its height to be 7 feet plus tall.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the sexual encounters were no longer loving or compassionate. This is where it turned into rape. As I had mentioned earlier, it had female genitalia, but it also had male genitalia. And it would assault me at night with its male genitalia. And it didn't matter if I was in bed or if I was outside smoking. If it was going to happen, it was going to happen at that time. So it didn't matter if I was inside or outside.
When they're doing that, they're laying claims down for dominance in your house. It's obviously it's not about sex or anything like that. It's about violation, and dominance. So this is like something. It sounds like a succubus and an incubus. So that you were experiencing, because like you said before, like you could be outside too, and if it wanted to dominate you, it's going to dominate you. There isn't a specific time or a specific place that it had to be for this to happen.
No. Think about that. Think about that you're standing outside, but you're still feeling like somebody's riding on you and riding you in a sexual way, or that somebody is standing behind you and penetrating you in a very violating way.
This is a topic that is really hard for anybody to talk about, let alone men don't get the opportunity to talk about vulnerabilities and realities that happen with them. And the part that Casey is being so open and vulnerable about that, I just gotta really say the shout out for that type of vulnerability is such a gigantic strength, and so inspiring to be that type of vulnerable, because it does help others.
Yes, I didn't think I would ever be sharing this story to anyone other than a few trusted individuals, let alone making a video about it and posting this on social media platforms for others to see.
Right.
But I feel that I would be doing myself and I would be doing others a great disservice not to share this story, because this stuff happens. These events happen to people, and it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
It will. These events happen to people, and I feel it is my duty, in not only as a person, but somebody who is invested and is now in this life of demonology and helping others from the grasp of a dark demonic hand and lifting them out of that. I also need to be able to do this for myself, so that's why I'm sharing this story. And in additional to the sexual violations, it just would constantly at night drain me from any kind of energy that I have. So waking up in the morning, I felt like I was a walking zombie, just a living dead person with no energy at all. And this went on for 7 years.
7 years. 7 years with nobody to talk to about this, nobody to understand what was really going on, no idea of any way of leaving that type of oppression. And I mean, for you, you kind of felt like that's your lot.
Yeah.
That's what it has to be.
Yeah. So let's talk about, and I'm going to share some effects that the side effects from a demonic haunting, and I'm going to talk about the things that I noticed about myself, and you'll find that these will be common tradecraft tactics for demons and the way they operate. As the years go by, eventually became numb to it, and it was just something that happened, whether I liked it or not, whether it decided to torment me all night in one way or another.
Suck out the life of you while you were sleeping. So
Yeah.
When things like that happens, the demonic does that on purpose. It gets you while you're sleeping. It will literally suck your energy out of you. It feeds on that. It actually is, that's one of the sources of its power and how it can continue to do this.
Yes.
Is that it sucks the energy out of the victim. This is very common, and people who are experiencing this is an awful thing to happen.
Yes. Yes. Somebody who suffers from combat PTSD, I was doing good for a long time, and then it felt like my symptoms and the problems that I was suffering felt like they were getting worse. So it felt like my PTSD was getting worse.
I gotta ask you something on that one too. A lot of people don't know your military background, of what that is and how that PTSD would affect you during this time.
Yes, I was a soldier in the U.S. Army, and I'm a combat veteran from the Iraq campaign, and I struggle every day with the PTSD from that, even today. But I was fighting that getting a good night's sleep was near impossible anymore during this time. It became a good night's sleep. Good night's sleep became a myth for me, something I could only dream about and one day hope for. So as a result, this side effects from this demonic haunting started becoming more of a recluse. I had no desire to interact with other people. I just would go to work and then I'd come home to my apartment and stop going out to do things, stop being social. I lost a lot of friendships and relationships during this time. And that's the other thing that demons want you to do, is they want you to abandon those relationships. They want to isolate you. They want to get you on your own. It's kind of like when lions attack a herd of animals. They isolate on one. They go for the one they think is going to be the easier kill to separate from the pack. And that's essentially what this demon was doing to me. It was isolating me from any other person that could be considered part of the pack, whether it was my parents or family or friends or whatnot. So this life of recluse.
It was like this was your prison.
This was my prison, exactly. This felt like my prison.
That's exactly what it wanted for you. It wanted you to feel like you're in a prison.
Yes. And now it starts becoming more aggressive and angry, I started becoming more aggressive and angry and would have a shorter fuse and would find myself very agitated a lot and, even trying to flex on people, perhaps maybe looking for a reason to get into a fight or something like that. This constant feeling of wrath and aggression was consuming me from the inside out. And as a result, from not only the physical stuff, but also the psychological damage that it does as well, I started having thoughts that were not my own thoughts, and these thoughts would play out like little tiny movies, and it started feeling like it was interjecting its personal thoughts and its persona onto me.
And wishes for you.
And wishes for me, yes.
Be specific of what that was.
Like,
what kind of images would it project that it was incredibly all-consuming when this would happen, and it would tell you to do things, and
I don't think I want to get into a great deal of detail on this, but let's just say these were thoughts and little movies playing that were out of my character to think that way, or
right.
would not have allowed that kind of thought in the first place.
Some really dark stuff.
Dark stuff.
Yeah. That it's very much out of character. All of this, those types of dark thoughts, those types of dark inner feelings, it had you consumed as though those are your own thoughts. With your place being oppressed like it was, you start to believe that that's your own line of thinking, that the dramatic depression and visuals that go with that only somebody who's been through something like this that could really truly understand. And I know that there are people that will watch this and understand what we're not saying in this to be true, because that's personal for that person as well.
Yes. So, yes. I started having more kind of rage outbursts, and they would be more frequent and happen a lot more, and it didn't seem to matter who it was. I would even have do this on my parents as well, unfortunately. Would rage on them sometimes out of nowhere.
And that's not your personality.
No, not
Not
at
even
all.
a little.
No,
That is not your personality.
not at all. I'm not one to talk to my parents or um, be that way towards my parents. That's not
Towards
my upbringing.
anybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or anybody.
You're about peace, and you always have been. But when these things are in your head that way, you don't believe those inner voices to be true about yourself, because that's exactly what dominates your mind and your being, is something that is not just occupying space in your apartment now, but truly occupying space in your mind and in your soul and in your being.
Yes, yes. Every facet of me. Yes. So as time goes by, I started having thoughts of just giving up. I didn't know how much longer I could endure this, or how much more pain I could endure. So I started having thoughts of giving up. I would envision myself driving my car into a wall or something like that. Just to be gone from the pain, to have the pain go away and be free from this grasp.
Finally escape.
Yes. And it was to the point where pain completely consumed my body, and within the first 11 months of the initial haunting, and within that time period, the first 11 months, let me remind you, this is over a 7-year period, but in the first 11 months, I lost 40 pounds, just like that, from stress and depression.
7 years. 7 years. 7 years.
So I tried to be proactive during this time, and I even had some early attempts to try and rid this demon. My dad would come over and pray for me and offer a blessing of hands on me and pray for me and help try and banish this entity out. I attended a spiritual group that had a couple dozen people to it, and we were all in a giant circle, and they were all chanting and, trying to push up positive energy in order for me to banish this demon, to be gone. I even took a salt bath, if I remember correctly. I think shortly after that group session, somebody told me to take a salt bath, and I even tried that.
So it sounds like they were trying to do a type of an exorcism, a spiritual, a light-handed exorcism.
Yes.
At this point and during this, it sounds like there was some possession going on with you.
Yes, and there's actually 4 stages to a demonic haunting. You have infestation, oppression, influence, and possession.
That's the final stage.
And I was in the 3rd stage of influence.
Mm-hmm.
So these early attempts, they didn't work, and it didn't matter. In fact, if I remember correctly, it just seemed to irritate and piss it off even more, to where it would take its rage out on me from doing that in one way or another. But why didn't that work? Why didn't those initial interactions work? And I can tell you this now, through 2020 hindsight, it's because my intention was not 100%. Deep down inside, even though I was suffering and did not like enduring what I was going through, deep down inside, there was still a part of me, there was a piece of me that seemed to enjoy this, or seemed to enjoy this kind of interaction, this supernatural interaction. And the demon knows this.
It's a type of a comfort. You should comfort in it.
I guess maybe to some small degree, it just or perhaps that I just became too numb to it and had a hard time envisioning myself in a life out of this.
Yeah, it's gigantic.
So the demon knows us. The demon knew that my intention was not 100%. It knew that I was not totally being real and honest with myself. So as a result, the invitation stayed open and the demon didn't go anywhere. It just continued to do its thing. And that's because my intention was not 100%. And that's what this all boils down to, is that to have pure intention in what you mean and what you want. And if you half-ass it in a degree with these types of beings, they're going to know that. They know your true intention, and they're not going to be forced to go away or give up or anything like that, because the invitation is still there.
Even if on a conscious level you knew that you wanted to get rid of this. Consciously, yes, of course you wanted this thing to be gone. Of course. You knew that you wanted it to be gone. You didn't want these things continuing to happen. You wanted to move forward. You did practices that displayed that that's what you consciously wanted to have happen. Your intention consciously was to get rid of this. Subconsciously, what was going on is you hadn't allowed yourself to get to a part of realizing that what your life would look like without this. So to break that tie was very difficult.
Correct.
And the subconscious part remained because that's not something you were deliberately aware of. It was, you couldn't bring that to the front to let go of it and make it conscious because it was so deep infested inside of you that you couldn't do it.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So I just wanted to bring that up because it wasn't that you weren't trying hard enough or you didn't do enough acts to get rid of it or that you wanted it to stay around, that you liked it or anything of the imagination of that. That's not it. Consciously, you wanted it to go. But subconsciously, you didn't realize what it took to have it consciously want to go.
That is correct. That is absolutely true. Well said. And that brings us to the end game. How did we push it out? How am I living today free of this demonic entity? And I can tell you, it all started with my twin flame here. It all started with her. I couldn't have done what I did without her.
You're making me blush.
When I met Carrie, being that she's a very gifted medium, she was able to come in and see the entity for what it really is and truly was.
Immediately.
Yes. It made its presence known to you right off the bat, didn't it?
All right.
Yes.
And at first I was like, oh, great. But then I was like, wait. Let's get rid of this. This is not okay. You cannot have this.
Yes.
I'm not sharing you either.
Yes. Yes. So how did we get to that point, or how did I get to that point? First, it took identifying what it really was and what its nature truly was. This was not something that was benevolent in the least bit. This was very malevolent. And once you know what you're up against and what you're dealing with, then it's easier to formulate a plan to get rid of it. And Carrie was able to help me process through a lot of underlying baggage, I guess, or burdens that I was holding on to myself that were not true. And this demon was using those lies that I believed about myself against me. So she was able to help me see what it truly is, but also who I truly am.
Yeah. That's a really interesting part. He's my twin flame. I'm his, of course, but we really activated each other when we met each other.
That's
I was
correct.
very quiet about my mediumship my psychic mediumship abilities, my healing abilities for many years while I was raising my own kids. And when we first started dating, he asked me how I would feel about him having roommates. And at first I thought he meant real roommates. What do I care? I have roommates too. They're my children. Wait, that's not the kind he was talking about. And so being able to, when I first came in and seeing there was a female energy that was here, Margaret, remember?
Yes.
There was a male energy that was here that was tied to that female energy. And then there was also a demon here as well. What we discovered was that the demon was actually a piggyback for those two other male and female entities that were here with them. Also, there was an additional later female energy that had come up too that was also being piggybacked, and that energy was Kate. So with the original male and female energy, it was an older woman and a younger male energy that they were tied together. It felt like a mother and a son, something like that. And then also the demonic energy that was in here. With the female and male energy, I was literally able to see it immediately. I could literally see it walking down the hall, opening and closing the door. You could see the shadows. I should have been totally freaked out, but I wasn't. You know? But what I discovered is it was a shapeshifter. It wasn't really a male and female that was here. It was actually the demon that was guising itself as two other energies as well. So basically it was one demon that had a whole legion of smaller entities within this area. We also discovered that, yes, Kate has always been here. Absolutely. Kate was very open with me about her presence being here. But she was also trapped in this place as well because she was being piggybacked by that demon, so she couldn't leave, she couldn't cross over, she couldn't go anywhere. And after realizing that, his roommates, what your roommates really meant, like, all right, let's do this.
Yes.
Let's do this. And so we got down to the bottom. There was a lot of information that when you're in a new relationship, you don't really talk a whole lot about. You just don't. I mean, you might talk about really serious topics like, do you want to have kids someday? Is marriage something that you want to do? Those are freaky topics to talk about, but, nonetheless, people talk about them. You don't talk about entity stuff in that.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to come over and maybe bust some demon ass over here? Yeah, that's not really something that you do. But he is my divine male.
And she's my divine female.
He's been so kind to activate me and let me be 100% me around him, and him to be 100% around me. There's a great sense of wonderful security and sameness and strength in being vulnerability that happens within that.
Yes.
And so the type of topics that we were having was not your typical, what do you want to do down the road type of stuff. We had those kind of topics too, but this was much more important. Instead, we're both asking and mirroring these questions to each other about our vulnerable places within ourselves, of asking the question, what lies do you believe to be true about yourself?
Yes.
That's a gigantic question. That's for anybody to have, let alone a couple. And what was revealed to me by doing that was watching him grow on a very personal place, in a very spiritual manner, that authentic desire to be cleansed and filled with love and light, and let that light shine on all of the darkest, innermost places of the lies that we believe to be true about ourselves. Watching that type of growth was a mirror right back to me too. And I was forced to examine those things about myself as well. And that realization came to a place of where we were really able to be 100% ourselves with each other. And also very protective in a non-codependent way.
Yes.
Very independent, but yet working together on two separate lives moving forward together. So that brought us to a place of getting rid of the entities within this place.
Yes.
Because we had to wait a bit to clear the entities until that question was really examined. What lies do you believe to be true about yourself?
Yes.
Any step before that, it wouldn't have taken true hold. But when it came time for us to do that, and it wasn't me going through and clearing by myself. That's not how that works. It had to be him doing that with me and clearing this place entirely. We literally blasted this place inside out. And when we did that, we not just took out the major demon that was in here and piggybacking on the others, but the entire legion of minions that were here as well. And all the not just the entities. We had to get rid of the entire residue of everything as well.
That's right.
And it was required for us to do massive energy healings for each other too, to make sure that we weren't continuously allowing that residue that was here to penetrate the deepest parts of our being as well. We no longer wanted any type of those footholds.
Right.
So it was mandatory for us to follow a set procedure for it to be cleared permanently.
Yes.
And by doing that, that's when we really, really discovered our purpose.
That's correct.
Together as a couple. Doing this for other people is one thing, but it is something rare and exceptional when you get to do this with your twin flame and have those experiences and that knowledge that each one of us has individually to bring that forward.
Yes.
And then to teach others about that as well, because who better to help somebody else than somebody who's been through it themselves? And that's why we're here. And his story of those entities being here, it was quite an intense experience. When we first got together, those entities would follow me to my place as well. They would torture me at my own place and get on my bed and do things to me too that I won't talk about. And you and I talk about it privately, but that's private.
Yeah.
There isn't anything in the world that him and I don't talk about. We just, have a lot of discretion and discernment of things that we open up about. We'll open up a lot, but not all of it. You don't need to see all of our shiny jazz hands. That's for us. So that was gigantic, and the action of clearing this, and it was something powerful, and it stuck.
Brought us close together in a way that you can't achieve on a normal relationship type of realm or level.
Right.
And she allowed me and helped me to heal and move past these lies that I believed about myself, and to help unburden the baggage that I was carrying. So that's the point when I took control back for myself, and it was at this point that I was no longer scared of the demon, and it would still rage out on my bed, and I was taking back control and saying that this is my home, this is my life, you're not going to be here anymore. And by unburdening myself, I was able to make a massive ascension in light and love, and raise my vibrations higher than what they had been. And by raising those vibrations higher, that helped push the demon out, because it couldn't stand in that type of high vibration environment.
And you got to meet your guides.
And I got to meet my guides.
And your warrior guides.
Yes.
That's quite a thing. So those guides are quite different than obviously any type of a demonic experience. That's for a different segment, though. We'll explain that another time.
Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this story. Story time with Carrie and Casey tonight.
I gotta say, I'm really glad that you opened up about this. It's fantastic. It's a really gigantic place for somebody to open up like this, but it's exceptional when I get to be a part of this with you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is great. Yeah, thank you for joining our channel. If you like what we did, go ahead, please subscribe, leave a comment below, tell people that you like us. And yeah, let us know about your experiences as well. And if you need some help with what you might be going through at your house or know somebody who's gone through something like this as well, please get a hold of us. We do not charge for these types of services in demonology. That is an exploitation. But yeah, if you know anybody who needs help, just forward them to us. We'd be happy to help.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to my story tonight, folks. Say goodbye and love and light.
Love and light. Have a great night.